Hello, Rachel. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. I'm here speaking with you about Star Trek Discovery Season 3, and I'm really excited because we're nearing the end of the season. We're not quite there yet, but I'm very, very happy. I'm very keen.
So close, I can taste it.
Can you taste it, Rachel?
That bitter taste will remain in my mouth for years, but I can taste that it's fading.
Yep. So we are the Yum Yum Podcast, likingly because of the iconic line of dialogue, Yum Yum, from Commander Nandi. Remember that brilliant character, Rachel?
Yes.
Could you tell me an attribute about her?
Yum yum.
You got it. You nailed it. Good job.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you. Yum yum.
So, we are going back and rewatching episodes of Star Trek Discovery, one episode at a time. Since it is a rewatch, we are talking about them in the capacity of a spoiler discussion for those who have not caught up to date with Star Trek Discovery. What are you doing? It's a show that you can watch, and we're nearing in the second last episode of its current run. Just watch it, so you don't get spoiled by us.
I would advise you not to watch it, but that's just me.
Oh, Rachel, don't be so cruel. But we aren't alone for this discussion, Rachel. We brought in a guest. We brought in the best scientist in the galaxy and a fellow podcaster, our good friend Jonas. Hello, Jonas. How are you?
Hey there. I'm good.
So, you've joining us for the episode of discussion that we'll be talking about, which is There Is a Tide. But please, tell us a bit about yourself and your podcast and what you do.
My name is Jonas. My podcast is the Short Shorts Podcast. It's just a podcast about short stories, science fiction, real life, true crime, all kinds of short stories. Very short.
Yeah, your episodes roughly go for like anywhere between a couple of minutes to I don't know, what would you say is the max length of some of your episodes?
I think 15, 20 minutes. Very few though. Most of them are meant to be short and light so that people can just move on.
Yeah. Yeah, we obviously found each other through the social media, and I've been really enjoying, just listening to your reading of short stories to and from when I'm going to work and whatever. You have a very soothing, nice voice. So if people are wanting to get someone reading them some nice short stories or some creepy ones or some, all of that, you kind of have you cover a wide spectrum of them. I've obviously, us being Star Trek people, I like the science fiction ones, but do you have any particular favorite genres or any particular favorite shorts that you've done on the show or had to read?
I like them all. I made them all, but mostly space, universe, aliens. Those are my favorite. Time travel is huge, but whatever I react to and whatever I can come up with, put it in a short story and let it go.
Do you have any reference points for science fiction? Like, obviously we're here to talk about Star Trek. I imagine you have a relationship to it, but is there any other kind of authors or shows or pieces of science fiction media that you really like?
Pretty much just anything related to space, science fiction, future. I'm not big on Star Wars and that kind of universe, but mostly just science, science fiction, mostly aliens. And I seen, I guess, all of the science fiction movies that I've seen, just you could say that that's my inspiration.
Yeah. You sound like my dad. My dad, when you ask him what he likes science fiction wise, he's like, I want it in space, I want spaceships, I want aliens, I want all of that good stuff. Like, my dad's also not a big fan of Star Wars and all of that, but yeah. And what's your relationship with Star Trek and Star Trek Discovery?
You could say that Star Trek was one of those shows that opened my science fiction hunger, starting with The Next Generation and then Voyager, and obviously this Discovery. yeah, I was so excited about this new branch. Uh, but yeah, it's I grew up with the Next Generation and enjoyed it uh, very much.
But what about Star Trek Discovery? What's been your general relationship and history with the show? Did you start watching it when it first came out? Are you in love with it? Do you hate it? What's your relationship with Discovery?
Well, whatever it was, it changed once I started listening to your podcast. So you can thank you guys for that. I was blinded. No, I mean, given the level of technology that we have now, obviously I was expecting the best, and as far as like graphics and stuff, we got that on season 1 and 2. Um, but as far as character development and the writing, I think that's where everything went down the toilet. I had big expectations for season 3. I mean, it was time travel, and they were going to an unknown world, and they had such
So
a
much potential.
universe of. They have so much potential, and then you come 900 years later, and you get Michael, and you get the same, and it's like, oh, okay, this is not what I wanted.
David Cronenberg's there.
Yeah, Cronenberg's there, and the guy from The Mummy is the Admiral, and everything's kind of just the same as it ever was back in the first 2 seasons, except for there's a different mystery, and that's it, kind of.
And then the mystery that starts as a huge monster becomes some. Yeah, it's not good. So, but no, I like the story at the beginning. The whole connection with Spock and everything. I think it just through the first season and then the second, they just focused on Michael too much, and we didn't get anything else.
Yeah.
And so it got a little boring.
Go save the day, Michael.
So, we're here to talk about the second last episode of Season 3, There Is a Tide. Rachel, could you tell us what IMDb thinks the plot of this is?
After capturing the USS Discovery, Osiris seeks a meeting with Admiral Vance, while Burnham and the crew must overcome unimaginable odds as they attempt to regain command of their ship.
That's the plot. That's it. That's the episode. And you know what? That's a concise plot. Rachel, what was your opinions of this episode when you first viewed it, and how does it all stack up now?
I thought it was dull and a waste of time because they were just trying to stretch it out to be 13 episodes, and they just were like, "Oh, we can do this thing." And CBS was like, "Okay, you do that thing.
You want Die Hard?
You want Die Hard? We can do Die Hard. It's fine." It's not like everybody's done Die Hard, and
including Star Trek.
Almost every single one is better than this one. But you can do it, Discovery. You can do it.
Do you remember that episode of TNG where they did Die Hard, kind of, where Picard was running around with like a bow and arrow and shit inside the spaceship? It was great.
It was fun.
Stupid. It was stupid then too.
It was fun. Like this one, especially on the rewatch, it's just kind of like, okay, I get it. Can we just move on? Because there's so many dramatic pauses.
Oh,
like,
and whispers. Don't forget the whispering.
All of the whispers and all of the dramatic pauses in this episode. And it's like, I get it. It's the penultimate episode of your season. You're trying to like stack those stakes up. And it just collapses in on itself. Like trying to make a cake out of Rice Krispie treats.
I remember when I watched this episode, I was just so relieved that we weren't on that fucking planet anymore with Sukal. Watching him
not being
run
in
around
the nebula is a saving grace of this episode.
I remember the first time, because I hated that episode, Sukal, but watching this one the first time, I was like, okay, now this is just stupid and boring. Again, mainly on the stupid side in terms of your Michael running around, and she's not being very tactical in her tactical way of trying to take over the ship again. She's kind of just unhinged and crazy, and I thought, And it was one I honestly forgot happened in the season. The only thing I remembered from it was the Osira aspect of the plot. And I remembered that just because, in the grander scheme of things, I remembered it and thinking, wow, they really wasted that. Because where her thing goes is nowhere. Upon rewatching it for this discussion, I didn't hate this. It was fine. It just didn't do anything exceptionally well.
Interesting.
It felt like it scratched just a bit of paint off in terms of hitting my interest. It wasn't as if there was anything that was explosively offensive to me or extremely dull or dumb, but it felt like they didn't dig hard enough into the meat of what you could do with this. I've enjoyed many a times in Star Trek we take the ship back from the enemy.
Tilly has a plan.
Tilly has a plan. I've enjoyed many times the let's take the ship back from the enemy plot in Star Trek. And they've been in varying tones, whether they be silly or intense. Like, one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes is when the Jem'Hadar take over the ship, and Bashir and co. are small, like the Defiant has been shrunk down, and they have to try and take over the ship again in a tiny Defiant flying around the air vents and all of that. I like Goofy taking over the ship stuff, but this one, it was there.
It doesn't know exactly what tone it wants.
Well, that's Discovery. It wants all of the tones.
Yeah. And it's not even like this storyline has this tone and this one has this one. It's like they want to make you feel everything in the one scene.
Yeah, and this is an episode I would describe as salvageable. There's things here that I reckon, like, I feel like, okay, if I just screwed this in a little bit tighter and removed that from here, this could be a bit more of a satisfying episode than it is. But there's an array of weird little things here and there that just drag this episode down a notch for me to it just being fine.
But I don't think it's worth salvaging.
No, but, you know.
I don't think there's enough here. I think this episode just should have been cut down and had, like, 2 scenes.
Yeah.
Like, one extra at the end of Su'Kal and one more at the start of the next episode.
Do you say that because also this feels like a very lackluster penultimate episode? This is like the second last episode. This feels like it should be episode 7.
Yeah.
In which they get the ship back and then they're like, that Osira stole the plans and we've got to stop her from replicating. That's what it feels like. It doesn't feel like this is like the big stakes and then we've got to wait for next week to see how they're going to wrap this one up. You know how they're going to wrap it up. They're just going to get the ship back.
Yeah.
It's not that interesting.
No, like, it doesn't have a point where it's like, oh, this is interesting. Where are they going to go with this? How are they going to manage to solve it? They've only got one more episode left. All of our characters are in these unique, tricky situations, and it's only them that can escape it with who they are.
No. They're just going to shoot her in the face and move on.
We loved the idea of a well-rounded villain who had a strong point of view on this new future and a strong point of view of how to survive and was at odds with the Federation. And we really wanted to give that to Osira this year.
How do you feel about this overall?
Well, I was still waiting. Even when the last episode came up, I mean, I was binging it. So I was like, what? That's it? So this episode like Rachel says, has no point and it's boring. But I was waiting for something because you think, okay, this is about to be the end of the season. So they're going to, every episode counts. Every moment counts. And you're waiting for that. You're waiting for what they're going to show you or what they're going to present. And besides, Burnham just running around acting, like she's hurt. Nothing else happens. And so for me, it was the first time around, it was just like, okay, I'm still waiting to see what was the point. And then now that I had to rewatch it over and over, it was just boring. I mean, it hurt me to just sit there and watch this again because I found no entertainment whatsoever. It's just boring.
Well, what about this would be entertaining to you in other contexts? Like, we've seen these type of stories in Star Trek before where they have to take over the ship again, or the bad guy wants to negotiate a plan. Why doesn't this meet that level of entertainment we've had with these type of stories in the past?
Because it contradicts itself. Osira has a plan, but she contradicts herself. On one side, she's going to the Federation, and on the other, she's trying to get the spore drive, and then she's walking away from unless she doesn't know, you have a whole planet of dilithium, and you're walking away because you don't care to think what are they doing here, what's going on here. Let me scan it, But I think that if it would have been better if they had, if making peace with the Federation wasn't actually her plan, if it was a disguise for her to like do something else, like present her as evil. If you want me to think that she's evil, first of all, I don't think she's evil because, in her way, she's pretty and she's green and she doesn't look evil.
She looks bored.
So show me how she's evil. Yeah, show me that she's
wearing
evil.
a leather catsuit, Jonas. That's how we know that she's evil.
She fed her nephew to a worm for no reason
Yeah,
other than to show us that she's
even
evil.
that-
Shoots somebody in the face when she doesn't need to.
We're supposed to be the scientist guy who's like, you're evil?
Not even her scientist guy knows that she's that evil. It's so if you're gonna tell me that this person has been, is in charge of a whole, population of people or a whole whatever she is, then show me why. Show me that she's evil. Instead, she goes in like a puppy to the Federation asking for peace, and then that doesn't happen. And in the meantime, she's trying to steal the spore drive, but that doesn't even happen either. So it's like, what are you doing?
No, this is...
Nothing happens. That's
Nothing.
a great way to
Yeah.
sum up this episode.
And it's filled with contradictions, and we spoke about this in our previous episode and a few others, is what we want from Star Trek is the logical, tactical nature of our characters over the overly emotional. And even with Osira, the tactical decision would be to not just steal the ship, which she does, but to then park it outside, like you said, and scan this nebula and determine, oh, that's what this is where this is. Okay, I now know that there's this dilithium mine. Let me call up all my boys to come here and do this. Then she can transport back to the Federation and not only just demand things, but also call them out on their contradictions. It's like, well, I know where this dilithium deposit is. I've got it now. I've got the spore drive. I've got this. Or even just like sit there and let her scientist work on the spore drive before even going to the Federation and just say, I have the plans and I can replicate this now. Like, she walks in being a dickhead, and then is upset that they don't want to abide by all of her demands because she refuses to be incarcerated for her crimes. Yet she doesn't have anything...
She's giving them so many other things.
Her argument is, you guys are capitalists too, so you shouldn't be hypocrites, but she needs more than that, and that's where it's like, yeah, we would want there to be a lot more strategy and a lot more logical thinking from our villain character, as well as Michael, where Michael, one of the fun things about someone taking over the ship again is watching them methodically do it and figure out what to do and how to do this and how to exploit weaknesses that the enemy don't know about. But Michael just kind of, her biggest strategic plan is she accidentally gets caught, and then she decides, well, they don't know that I could shoot them out an airlock. But like when the cowboy guy from episode 2 calls her on the communicator, she seems like genuinely surprised that they figured it out. So it wasn't even like she did this knowing that they would figure it out and she's lured them into a trap. It was just by happenstance. So there's nothing interesting there either. And then Tilly and co, their plan is just to tap really loudly until they just punch the guys in the face and walk out. So that's not that interesting either. Like, you know what I'm saying, Rachel? Like, is that any three of those plots where the characters operate with plans, are any of them actually that interesting, or are they just dull like Jonas says?
Yeah, I don't think either of them really count as plans.
Or strategic thinking.
No, they're just like, let's see what happens.
And with a taking back of the ship episode, there are bad ones of those in the past too, and what they do to counter them, because also Star Trek's like 50 plus years old. We've seen this story done so many times. So what do they do in Star Trek? They give it a gimmick, like in Deep Space Nine. The gimmick is they have to take back the ship, but they're shrunken down to a small size. Or in Voyager, one of my favorite Voyager double-parters, which is the only person who can take Voyager back is the serial killer that they have imprisoned on the ship. And he's totally up for killing people. See, that's a fun gimmick. It's a fun addition to this tired story. But in Discovery, the only thing that's interesting here is Osira wants peace. And then she decides, no, she doesn't. And then walks away. And it's like, well...
No, she's not willing to give herself over in order to achieve peace.
Yeah, so she's not willing to actually attain peace. If she was willing to attain it, then she was willing to sacrifice herself, but she wasn't. So in the end, we spent a whole episode standing in one's place, promising that we could move forward, but in fact we moved nowhere.
I think that she fears that there would be no one else that would actually be able to stand up and continue the progress. She's worked so hard to get her people where they are, and so she's just not willing to sacrifice herself for the greater good.
Well, if I was Osira and I came across a whole planet of dilithium and I capture the spore drive in Discovery, I'm the queen of the world. I'm the queen of the universe, because I don't need the Federation anymore, because I have dilithium forever. I have Star Trek Discovery. Take it in there, blow up the Federation. The Federation is gone, and now you rule the whole universe. So what is the point of that?
Yeah, because also, like, exactly right, because by the time she gets to the Federation, they have the plans for the spore drive. They just need to figure out how to replicate the method of travel. And even in this episode, they hint at what the next episode will reveal, which is empaths can use it. They say that. The scientist man says that. It's like, only empaths or people like you can operate this. It's like, oh, well, are you telling me that the Emerald Chain doesn't have any people with empathic abilities in their collective of people, or slaves? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so exactly right, Jonas, where she's walking in demanding peace via the assumption that she's going to run out of dilithium and have no upper hand, but she openly admits, and we know that she has the upper hand because she has the spore drive technology and can replicate it. So why does she even need the Federation?
In her defense, part of it is that she says that, like, nobody can be feared forever and they need the ideals of the Federation in order to be sustainable. She's looking to make the chain last for centuries beyond her rule and beyond the random kind of Senate that they introduce.
Oh, Jonas, could you please tell me at any point when you watched this that you understood that the Emerald Chain was a body or like an organization with ministers and legislations and like a parliament? Did you understand that that was a thing that they were at any point until this episode came along and said that they were?
No, because we never learn about the chain other than her being a villain and killing people and, you know,
having slaves.
I really just assumed that it was like a mob syndicate.
Yeah, I assumed it was like a pirate group,
Yeah.
like where they just had a stranglehold on trade, and that was it. But apparently they have science institutes.
Yeah, and it's just like, oh yeah, like, you know, that I can push aside because it's just like, oh, well, they're evil, so they need geniuses to make weapons that enable them to do their evil shit.
But she's a minister.
The government side of things? Like, where is that? Like,
Yeah, where is that? Good question. Where is it? Who's in charge? How does the hierarchy work? How does any
Are
of
they
it work?
elected? Do they, or is it like a Terran system where they have to kill their way up the ranks?
We'll never know because the emerald chain falls after
Disintegrates.
It disintegrates once they shoot Osira in the face. She was the linchpin that held
Bye-bye.
it all together. No, like it's so confusing how the mechanics of all of this works in terms of like how the emerald chain works. Since we're talking about Osira, I want to say that I think they missed a huge opportunity with Osira. I think she's a dull character. She's got no character. She's one of the weakest villains I've ever seen in Star Trek, especially one that's like a multi-episode recurring villain. I remember when they introduced the idea that she came in there to sign a diplomatic treaty. I was intrigued because I was happy that it wasn't just, and her plan is just to shoot things.
And she came in prepared.
She was willing to make all these legislation decisions, which again...
And she'd apparently already set these up with the government.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, Rachel, that also kind of counters what you said. That goes into what Jonas said. Why do they need the Federation? You said it's because of their PR and their image. But if they just did what she wanted to do, which is to minimize the atrocities and to de-escalate the militarization and the evil of their organization, wouldn't they slowly over time become the Federation or become a good organization if they actually followed the morality of what she was trying to put down? So again, why do they need the Federation? But I was intrigued by the idea of Osira signing up for peace because I was a little bit like, oh, okay, she's not going to shoot them in the face. And then they decided, in fact, we are going to make her just want to shoot them in the face. And
things gotta go boom.
And I feel like they just wasted a potential there. I think I would have rather have seen the bad guy surrender and then just figure out what to do politically with her. And to actually figure out, do we sacrifice our morals and our values by teaming up with an organization that was willing to have slaves and do all these atrocities? I would rather have seen the political side that we've seen in Star Trek before.
You want to see the deliberation and the discussion
and the ethics
behind Vance's decision to say, like, no, we need this if we're going to do this at all. And over and over again, Discovery says no.
Yeah, I would like to have seen what it actually looks like to make concessions with a tyrant, and for the tyrant to make concessions back. But instead, she just says, you want to arrest me? Fuck you then. I'm taking it all back. You're a fool. It makes her look like an idiot. Because she never even...
so many plans.
She never even...
so... Like, how dare they even ask that of me? And it's like, well, yeah, of course they're going to ask that of you.
It was like... She was too stupid to even like think for a moment that was a potential that could happen. Like, to her, it was a genuine surprise that they wanted to arrest her for her crime still. For a woman who's apparently so smart, she couldn't see that. And it makes her just look like an idiot who chucks a tantrum and throws away the chance for the storyline to end in a good way and just decides we're going to drive this to
end in boom.
We're going to drive this to the inevitable conclusion of I'm going to be evil and shoot things and then I will get killed. Like, it's just tiring. Jonas, what have you thought about Osira, and what do you think about this idea? Like, do you think if they wrote it in a different way, you could actually go somewhere with this, or is she just too evil and boring of a character to actually do that?
I think you're right. It was a missed opportunity because you have this villain who obviously, like Discovery, we only hear what she does. You don't have like a brief history of what she's done, or you just know she's evil because they tell you that she's evil. But they could have done this without the Federation, and that's what the Federation wants at the end. They want, they want to accept other governments. They want to accept other species that conform to their beliefs or whatever. So she would have done it, but it could have been made into, okay, yeah, she's going in for peace. Maybe she wasn't thinking that they were going to ask for her head, but guess what? She has a console back in somewhere, and now she communicates with them, or they're right there next to her making these appeals for peace. And as soon as they say, "Well, we need her head," the council decides, "Yep, we're gonna do this because we want peace," and then they sacrifice her. Instead of, well, where is this whole government that you talk about when you're not willing to do this for your chain, for your people? So it could have been so much better to present her as a real villain, and for her to have a plan. Because when she walks back into Discovery, she's like, okay, now I'm gonna show them how bad I am. And it's like, well, now it's too late because you just looked like an idiot, like you said.
She showed her hand, and it just showed her how weak she really is. Like, I agree. Where's this other council? Where are these people? Like, they could sacrifice her, or even have the bold move of her actually showing us how dedicated she is to her own plan and say, yeah, I surrender. I'm willing to do that. And thus that would actually be a twist. I mean, it's not really that big of one. We've seen many times the villain willingly sacrifices themselves, but actually they've got a secret agenda. But you could do something with that. Or give her more of a reason for why they shouldn't arrest her, to add to an ambiguity of the scene, to make it feel like maybe Vance is asking.
Something.
Yeah, like, give us something. Like, make it feel like there's a tug and a pull between the two negotiators, because there's no point where I didn't disagree with Vance or think he was asking too much or pushing too hard. He was very reasonable, and then she chucked a tanty and left.
And
He
told
wasn't.
her the apple was made of shit. He was a mini pants.
But he wasn't, and like, it just makes this whole thing, and the thing that I said too, which again ties into Jonas's point that makes this dull, is what is this propelling? This propels to nowhere. There's no ground being made here, because all she reverts back to is being what she was before, which is, I'm going to shoot my way to victory.
But each season of Discovery, it's just a treadmill.
Yeah, but this plot here, all it offers up is a thought exercise and nothing else. It doesn't propel the themes or the plot or the characters.
Nah.
It introduces an interesting idea for them just to say, yeah, but that's an idea, not a plot, not a thing, not a tangible thing we could explore. It's just an idea. And aren't you sick and tired, Rachel, of Discovery just saying, look, here's an idea, and then not doing anything with it?
Oh, yeah. Especially when they want to be given credit for all of the things that they don't actually do.
I have to say, this had one of the most intense negotiation scenes I've seen in a while. I am, of course, talking about the Federation's Admiral Vance versus Osira of the Emerald Chain, a standoff for the ages.
I lost my mind, and I wonder if you did too, Jonas, when Osira just nonchalantly declared, I can replicate the spore drive, you guys can't. Like, the Federation, you guys are incapable of doing that. I didn't know that they were incapable of doing that, because they've just never discussed trying to replicate it ever again after that one episode. What do you think about that, Jonas? Were you surprised by that, or what?
Well, we don't have any sense of time. So how long have they been back from the past? But you would think that if your biggest problem with the Federation in the future is that you cannot travel far enough, so you would think that the first thing they do is, oh, guess what? I know you guys are riding horses, but I have a car. Should we start making more cars?
Yeah.
It's like they decided, okay, we have a spaceship that can take us anywhere in an instant, but let's put that on the back for now. We don't need that right now. So yeah, that was just...
Because early on, Vance was like, I'm going to separate your crew, we're going to analyze the ship, we're going to delve into the science, and then Discovery said, no, let us be in charge of all of that. And then they said, oh, okay. And then it never went anywhere further. The closest thing we got was, Jonas, do you remember early in this season, Tilly was like, hey, I figured out, I've got a theory that we could use the spore drive without a human. We could use antimatter or black matter. And then Paul was like, there's some merit to that. And then we've never touched that ever again until Osiris says,
No.
you guys have no scientific way of making this work. I do. It's like, oh, okay.
Is that it?
No, her way is one I've suggested in the past, just grow the tardigrade cells and inject other people with it. Which, they're 930 years in the future. How come the Federation can't do that?
That should have occurred to somebody else by now.
It makes the Federation look dumb and pathetic and like...
Oh, they are well and truly pathetic. That's not the only reason that they're pathetic.
And also, you do see the transfer of technology from them to Discovery. You see the programmable...
programmable matter.
Programmable matter and all that. So what do you think that they would be able to replicate that and do that as soon as possible? Because it did transfer from them to Discovery, but it didn't work the other way.
Yeah. One of the things that I remember early on too that they used as a fallback position for why they couldn't get the details of it was the sphere data was protecting all the information, and that's one of the reasons why they had a hard time getting the spore drive and details. But in this episode, Osiris has all of the data, and the sphere data did fucking nothing to protect anyone from anything ever. It just was like, I'm just going to be hiding in a Buster Keaton video.
But then it does protect them at other points or in the last episode?
No, in this, at the end, it's like, and I've put myself, the sphere data, I've put myself in robots that can be destroyed.
Yeah.
Thus, I can be destroyed.
Yeah. But isn't there a line from Tilly or Saru at some stage of it being like, I think that we protected the sphere data and now it wants to protect us.
Oh, that was from Saru to explain why the sphere data made the computer come to life in that one episode to give him the information he needed to complete his arc in that episode. And then it never came back to life again. And they never talked about how the computer came to life that one time. Now, Jonas, you're
now
right.
It's not convenient, so we ignore it.
Jonas, you've watched Star Trek, you've watched science fiction stuff, you write science fiction. How crazy is it that in this show, the computer came to life and no one cared?
If you remember that whole episode before the end of that season where they kept moving from one ship to another, the reason was because the sphere there didn't let them destroy itself. And so it protected the whole ship. And you would think, yeah, this is the future, but maybe the sphere data has some information on these people as well. And so the moment they went in there and they are trying to, transform or reprogram the whole ship, no one stops them. No one shuts down the ship or anything. They're just like move in and do it without the sphere data coming up. And it has become that where the sphere data is only necessary when they want to. And it's supposed to be an autonomous, it's supposed to be artificial intelligence or something. So why doesn't it act accordingly, And it shouldn't just be one episode. It should have been throughout that is doing this as maybe like as another member of the crew, as an all-seeing eye, because it has 100,000 years of knowledge. So use that, make us believe that.
Make it a character.
Yeah, make it into a character. Like we've had that before. And it's like, why not?
Oh, sweethearts, you want an idea to be developed in Star Trek Discovery?
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, bless your hearts. You're still holding out hope of that?
But that's what that's what the third season...
It promised that.
Yeah, but the third season, here's the thing too. Each season does this, but the third is very egregious in terms of, is this a serialized story where each season flows into the next, or are they supposed to be solitary anthology-like seasons? Because the third season, it needed to address the fact it had the sphere data. That's why they went to the future. the whole thing is that. And in the future, no one wants the data. When in the beginning, the data was like, I'm going to give you all of this information so it can benefit your people when you need it the most. And then in the past, when we were in season 2, it didn't want to give itself over because the control agent was going to use it for evil. Here we are in the future now when our people need this information, and the sphere data is never mentioned really. Nobody wants it. Nobody talks about it. The sphere data doesn't hand itself over or give any benefits to anyone. And then the spore drive. We're in a universe in which people cannot travel quickly, and nobody wants a spore drive until this episode in which Osira just captures the ship. And it's not like she captured it because she wants a spore drive. She just captured it because it has information on it. But not even like...
I think random characters have mentioned that, like, oh, Osira's going to want the spore drive.
But the thing is, they never established how
No.
Osira knew about the spore drive. At any point, she just walks in going, I know everything because I scanned the ship one time. A scan will not tell you that they have a spore drive located in this one area that's identical to 15 other labs. Remember? I don't know.
But they can transport right into the cage.
Yeah, Jonas?
If you remember correctly, what was the last time they used the spore drive to do? What did they do last time? Did they use the spore drive?
To
find what?
The nebula, right?
Yeah, they're going
No.
to
Or near the nebula.
Before that.
To
find a solution for Giorgio.
Oh, yes.
So they used the sphere data, and they said, we put it in 3 times or so, whatever, and it gave us the same answer. Okay, so you used it to save the bad lady, but now, because in this future, you have the burn, and you had all this data, when did you ask the sphere data, hey, 100,000 years of knowledge, what do you think happened here? They never
Michael
did that.
needs to
They
find
never
those black
consulted.
boxes, though.
Yeah, Michael needs to find the black boxes.
Yeah.
That's why they don't ask it, because Michael has to have the arc of being proven right about if we just find these boxes and we get this data, we'll be able to figure out where the burn started.
The reason...
When I agree. I think if they asked the sphere data in episode 1, it would have been able to answer.
And that's a good thing, though. And that's the thing, though. The sphere data, by design, is a Deus Ex Machina. By design, it will just erase any plot points. So they have on purposely omitted it being in the series. But you can't help but think about it, because that's the reason that they're in the fucking show in the future. You can't help but think about it. And then that's the same with the spore drive. The spore drive... it works. People would want it, but they omit any of that because that would get in the way of the real drama, which is what caused the burn.
And the thing that was important to her was to get this black box that can help solve the mystery of the burn.
And here's the problem that is really happening for us. You can have an overarching serialized thing that doesn't have to be this grand, important thing, as long as what you are replacing that with is character stuff. If you have good character play and good character dynamics, then everything in terms of the bigger plot can be okay. There's like, Voyager is a fun show, but overall its overarching narrative-y stuff isn't that great, but you have fun characters and fun little stories to patch that up. And if you don't have fun character stuff, as long as you have an interesting big overarching serial story to latch onto with twists and turns, then it's fine.
Have
but Discovery,
one at least,
Discovery wasted time not achieving either.
No.
You know what? We're talking about like the sphere data this and the spore drive that and Osira this. The show wasted time with shit like.
It's not interested in those things.
But it wastes its time on little shit like for instance, I got thrown off in this episode. We're in this intense sequence where Book is about to crash land the ship in the back of Discovery, which is very reminiscent of Star Trek V, The Final Frontier. A very good one to evoke. Where, out of nowhere, a hologram of Grudge appears, and he says, Grudge is secure. What was that? Why the fuck
we
was that
needed a
there?
Grudge update.
We needed that's the thing. We need an update on the fucking cat more so than what the sphere data's doing, or what the spore drive, or anything, or even who the fuck Adira is as a character, or why Grey is in the show. We need to know about the fucking cat.
Stamets is now identifying as a father.
Oh, yeah. His great fathership journey that happens entirely off screen. That's something I really want to talk to.
So random to me. Even on the rewatch, just that he's like, I have a kid.
Yeah, Adira, they're my kid.
And I was just like, is this Stamets being an asshole and
No.
doing it? No, it's genuine.
It's like, come again? What? You're a father?
Say what?
When did this happen? Or like, did you ask her that you wanted to be her father?
No.
It didn't feel personal. It didn't feel genuine. It felt like he was just playing the scientist. But they want to make you believe that they have this relationship, but you never given me, aside from him saying, it's okay to be different. There's nothing else that makes them, aside from a scene where they're all together. But no, show me the relationship developing.
Yeah, the found family, but all of it happens off screen. And I wonder, Jonas, if our show's informed you, or even if you've noticed on the watching or rewatching, how many things in season 3 are just, you have to assume that happened because we didn't show you it. We just happened off screen. Adira and Paul's relationship, off screen. Osira and whatever the fuck she's been doing, off screen. Book and Michael's magical year away that explains why her character is the way she is, off screen. Have you noticed this? Like, what do you think about that?
I wonder if they just try to expand so much that they want, like in other Star Treks, they make it happen in front of you so that and even in Picard, but here is like, well, if we mention it, we bring it into the universe. If we mention it, we bring it into the universe. And so now it's like, now you just happen to believe it. But just like on the last episode, Lorca, I seriously wanted to see Lorca. I wanted to see him because I like the guy. I liked the guy in the good before we found out he was a bad guy, and then when he became the bad guy, he was bad, and I like that he was true to himself. But then here it's like, no, you're just gonna have to believe us. But they just forgot that, I don't know, they're just trying to expand our universe without seeing it. But yeah, it just fails.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, I get it, you can't show us everything on screen, but what you should show us should be interesting, important, or at least great. But they do shit like, remember I'm sorry, I just had a flashback. Remember that Detmer had PTSD this season? You wouldn't fucking know it by looking at her in this episode. She seems pretty determined. She seems like that story never fucking happened.
Ryan, did you know that Michael talks in her sleep?
Did you know that? Okay. When Michael was running around and she got stabbed in the leg, and her first thought was, take the knife out of my leg, which is one of the first things you shouldn't do in that situation.
Because you're going to bleed out.
My first thought was, and it always makes me laugh because this comes up a lot when I watch Discovery, which is, Michael's a xenoanthropologist, by the way. She's supposed to just be a scientist.
With an engineering background, because everybody's an engineer.
Oh, yeah, I don't think there's a single non-engineer character. Maybe Saru. But, like, it's so funny to me to remember that she's supposed to be just an anthropologist and a quantum physicist. Like, that's what she's supposed to be. And it always amuses me because every character is supposed to be something that's very scientific and nerdy.
She was a courier for a year, and that changed her.
And yet they're all acting like they're Captain Kirk, where Captain Kirk was always like a rough and tumble guy. But, like, I can't imagine in TNG, Geordi getting in situations like Michael does. He's just a nerd and an engineer. Like, hey, he'll hold his own. He'll give you a punch. But, like, I can't imagine Geordi, like, running around throwing a knife at people and, like, doing kung fu fist fights because he's just an engineer. He's just a nerd.
We demand that you return our crew member immediately.
Request denied.
Lower your shields.
Request denied.
Stop it!
We got to talk about Michael Burnham, everyone's favorite character, and her whole entire plot this episode is to run around, and I really loved when she attacked the guy who stabbed her. A great way for someone who's apparently studied stealth tactics is to scream out, "Hey!" and then punch them. I really like that. That was a little moment that made me chuckle a lot because I was like, aren't you supposed to have the act of, aren't you supposed to take him by surprise? Because if she didn't yell out, hey, maybe he wouldn't have stabbed her in the leg.
Yeah.
Why not just Vulcan neck pinch him and nerve pinch him? You did it to Paul later.
She chokes him out with her legs instead.
She Black Widows him. Yeah. Rachel, Michael Burnham is running around, and the big plot for her is she stops Paul from staying on the ship because he wants to save the people he loves. How do you feel about Michael's actions and her position in the episode? Because her position is, I've got to do this for the greater good. The needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few or the one. She's doing that type of logical play here where it's like, Paul, you're a risk for Osira to do more damage. I've got to get you off of here. I'm sorry. I like Paul and Adira too, but screw your needs.
Hugh and Adira.
Yeah, Hugh and Adira. Sorry, Hugh and Adira. Screw your needs. What do you think about Michael and Paul's kind of dynamic here?
It feels stupid and contrived.
How so?
Because it's just so that there's more drama. It doesn't feel like that's a tactical decision. It's just like, it feels like she's just thinking, okay, what can I do next? What can I do next? What can I do next? It doesn't feel like she actually has a plan or knows what she's doing. And I agree with all the stuff that Stamets says.
Yeah.
Like, it makes more sense for them to use the spore drive and get away from Federation headquarters and to use the spore drive to take back the ship and to use the fact that they're in an engineering area and subvert and undo Osiris systems and use the sphere data.
See, I'm actually on the opposite end. I agreed with Michael, but not fully. It made sense to me to remove Paul so that way you're removing Osira's power, because Osira could just easily take him over his mind and do a lot of damage with the spore drive. I mean, remember in season 1 when Lorca used the spore drive for military moves? Imagine Osira doing that. She could easily do that if she wanted to. I understood that. What I didn't buy was the drama of it, which is Paul, it really hinges on you buying into the fact that Paul is this now newly founded father who cares so much about Adira. I get the caring about Hugh. I understand that. That feels real. That feels bought into. But once he finds out that Adira is down there too, he emotionally snaps and goes cuckoo bananas to the point in which I couldn't buy his argument anymore.
He can't handle it.
And it was done in the way where it was so that Michael could be right, because look how emotionally unstable Paul is. His argument doesn't have any volition anymore because he's compromised emotionally, just like Saru is, just like Tilly is, just like everyone other than when Michael's emotionally compromised. When anyone who isn't Michael is emotionally compromised, they are wrong.
No.
But Michael, hey,
her being worried about Book, fine.
Yeah, Jonas, you wrote to me on Twitter, that was one of your points that you wanted to talk about, was how much of a hypocrite it is of Michael, where Michael in this season so many times screwed over people, disobeyed direct orders because she cared so much about her boyfriend Book. But in this situation...
And most of that before they were actually together.
Yeah, but in this one, screw Stamets for wanting to do the exact same thing. How did you, isn't it crazy?
Oh yeah, I wanted to slap Michael right there, because it's like saying, I don't care about your feelings. I don't care that your boyfriend already died once. I don't care that they're dying a slow death of radiation poisoning. I don't want to hear your plan. Just do what I tell you. I'm going to shoot you out of this ship, and you're never going to see your family again. And this is the one missed opportunity that I also saw, because this could have been the moment that the focus has changed to Stamets saying, hey, I know what to do. Let me jump back to the nebula, inside the nebula. You get everybody, something, because they could have done something else. Or this, I guess Osira was already back in the ship by this point. So maybe that's why. And he could have, she could have come and control him again. But the point is, he didn't have that thing in the head anymore. So at that point, he couldn't control her. But why not give Stamets consideration to think, okay, let's think it out. You have a plan. What's your plan? No, it was no. I'm gonna shoot you out, and I don't care, and I'm gonna cry so that everybody knows that I'm genuinely hurting, but I don't care about your pain. Which at this point, I think it was bigger than her.
Yeah.
She wanted to go rescue her boyfriend, who wasn't her boyfriend yet, but it didn't matter because she wanted to do it, and they disobeyed a direct order from from Vance to go, but she did it anyways. And now that this guy who's gone through a lot, her boyfriend dying, and then resurrecting again, and then him rejecting him again, and it's like, okay, well, yeah, but that's not enough. We're gonna do my thing.
I mean,
and
you
it
guys
was
already
like,
sacrificed your lives in the past to come with me to the future because you guys care about me so much, but I don't care about you. Fuck you.
Oh, we don't need to think like scientists.
Or military figures in any sort of way. Yeah.
Nah.
I was just like, why can't his plan work and give us more excitement?
Yeah.
But no, it had to be what she says because at the end, all that matters is, and he's right when he said, we came for you. We did all this, and he's right, but at the end, it doesn't matter because she's still in charge.
The reason his plan does not get obeyed and worked and is rejected is there's two reasons. We need to have Book take over his job as driving the spore drive, thus he has a reason to be in the show any further. Because the only reason he has to be in the show at this point is to be her boyfriend. There's no other reason. We have to give him a reason. He drives the ship now. The other reason, the second one, is so that there can be hanging over drama for next season between Paul and Michael. Because in the final episode, when she's the captain, he gives her this look like he's still pissed off. And even our good friend Julio, who was on a few episodes back, he said to me, like, oh, aren't you interested to see how that drama how it's gonna play out next season? And I'm like, no, not really, because what is there to play out? Just Paul is like a pissy little ant about it, and then Michael says, sorry, I had to do it. Like, there's not a lot of drama to be mined from it, but that's the two reasons.
You mean the same beats that were done with Detmer and Paul at the start of this season?
And we've seen Star Trek Discovery throw away carrying over drama. Like, remember in the first season when it was like Paul cannot use the spore drive again because it's unhealthy for him, and then in the second season Pike was just like, you can do it, it's fine. It's fine. And then it never mattered again, and even though there was like morally wrong for Lorca to ask him to do it, it was morally okay for Pike to ask him to do it for lesser reasons. They don't care about that kind of stuff. So that's the two reasons. Paul is,
and it's so unfair. It is so unfair for them not to give Stamets this. It's the end of the season, but still, it's like they've been abusing him in the past two seasons. They've been abusing him, and yet it's okay. We still want to abuse you, so go out into space.
My question is, what do we even do with Paul now? Because since season 2, he's not wanted to be on the ship. Like, he's actively had this attitude for the last 2 seasons that he doesn't want to be there, and all he wants to do is just be happy with Hugh, who rejects that happiness time and time again because of his own drama, which we can talk about. And now he doesn't even have the position of being the only one who can operate the spore drive. So other than having a pissing match with Michael and with Hugh next season, what do you do with Stamets as a character now? He actually serves literally no function now on the ship. There's no reason to have him there because he actively doesn't want to be there, and now he doesn't even serve the role of being the thing that turns the spore drive on. So what is there? Nothing, really. And that's a shame because he was one of the characters that I found the most interesting from the start of the show. And now I dread seeing him in season 4 because I just think, he has no purpose, just like all these other characters that they've wasted over the years.
At the end of the season, this is home now. And we need somebody to lead us in this new future who really understands it, who understands us, who's willing to take risks. Michael Burnham is the hero that we need in that moment.
The last thing I want to talk about before the Huda is the episode ends with the cliffhanger, dramatic sting of the spore drive. I mean, the sphere data has put itself in the dots, which we've been setting up all season. They're in the intro credits and everything. Upon the rewatch, even on the initial watch, this is the most lackluster thing ever. And then on the rewatch value of it being lackluster, all I remember is they just get shot mercilessly, and then one of them just turns on a switch off screen. And that's all it serves. So when you end the episode being like, it's put itself in the dots, it's going to do all this stuff, and then you realize when you rewatch it, oh, they actually don't do much. It's a really piss weak ending to the episode as well, which ties into Jonas's whole thing of like, this episode is insufferable to watch on a level, because you do get to the end, and you have the dots, and they're doing the Vulcan salute with their 3 fingers, and you go, oh yeah, that's right, this is a thing. Like, Rachel, when you watched it, you said, oh, right, Ryan, you can turn on the rest of the episode, because Rachel walked out of the room as soon as it went to black, came back, was like, you can turn on the rest of the episode. I'm like, no, that's where it ended. Because it's such a lackluster ending. Rachel, how do you feel about the dots thing on a rewatch value? Does this sustain anything? They put them in the credits.
It doesn't sustain anything for me. Doesn't make anything interesting. They're kind of cute, but that has nothing to do with the storyline. It adds no merit, but they're kind of cute.
But
that's it.
But they're color coded, the blue, red, yellow. Like, isn't that cool? Like, that means one of them.
Oh my god, totally changed my mind. Like, that just changes everything. They're color coded. Oh my god, does that mean that like some of them are command, some of them are medical? Oh, do they treat each other? Do they have their own ranks? Is one of them the captain of the dots? Oh my god. Everything has changed now.
Rachel, they've been here since season 1.
I know.
It's very funny. Jonas, what about you? With the dots ending the episode?
My goodness. If you remember, we spent a lot of time on season 2 downloading the sphere data, uploading the sphere data. When it got to the ship, it created such a massive mess. Everybody's speaking in different languages, and it was everywhere. And the whole point was it cannot download fast enough because it's a whole planet's worth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And you mean to tell me that it downloaded itself into a bunch of little robots that I'm sure they don't have a lot of capacity. I mean, unless they're like surgical robots or something. But they could have done so much with this. I mean, the freaking sphere data could have come in and kick ass and like done so much. Like, I would have loved to see all of them running around, because the sphere data is messing with their doors and is messing with the cowboy guy and doing all kinds of stuff. Like really, show me the sphere data capacity or capability. Instead is, oh no, they're just a bunch of cute little robots because we want to. Every time I see one of those, I think R2-D2. That's all I think about. And I cannot separate that in my mind. So it's like, no, we want to look cute. We want to show them, as
toys made of them.
Yeah. And it's
that
just
goes
like, no.
back to us wanting a character out of the sphere data. We want it to matter.
And we know why we want that too, because
it's supposed to be.
Go on.
It's supposed to have the capacity to take over the whole ship and do all these other kinds of things. And where is it?
I lost my mind when at one point they said that like how much percentage of data the sphere data is, and it's like less than what I can fit on my external hard drive right now. And I was like, I thought this was like huge. I thought this was like a massive amount of data. Like you said, like it made Saru sick getting it transported on. It made the ship nearly explode. Like, but no.
Is
apparently
it hiding itself somehow?
No, it's in the dots, and it's only like 10 megabytes or something. Like, it's so crazy.
So stupid.
And we also wanted to be a character because we know it becomes a character in that short trek. Remember, there's that short trek where the Calypso short trek, and it's voiced by the same actress, and it's like the ship's alive and it has a personality. That's also subconsciously planted in our brain of we've seen the data become a character. So here it is not being one. And then even in the episode with Saru, had a little bit of a personality when talking to Saru. And then in these episodes, it's like, oh, no personality. And there's been no episodes in between to further it. So you're just sitting here going, oh, it's in the dots. Where's this going to lead? And you remember it leads to nothing other than one of them sacrifices himself when Oo faints in the next episode, which, oh boy.
It's like having a bunch of huge guns. And you don't use them. It's like having an arsenal of. I mean, Discovery is one of the best equipped ships as far as transportation wise, sport data, knowledge wise, data. The sphere data. It's just like, and it's like, you're not using it. Why are you not using this? To expand, to really expand, instead of keeping us in the Michael universe. Shoot us off and show us the possibilities, but nope.
Because it all gets in the way of the story that they want to tell. Those would be their own stories, but they just want to tell you the story about the sea locusts that are affecting Book's planet, and how, or Sukal being this big mystery for the whole season, in which, the answer is his mummy died. They're not interested in telling these type of stories that you think would happen. You think that they would follow through on the things that they set up. Like, remember Terrelysium from last season and how that was going to be their home base? Like, literally Michael's mother made an entire civilization with a religious background and everything to be prepared for their arrival in the future. In this season, they mention it like, I talked to Terrelysium. They're all right. We're never going to go there. They're not interested in following up or expanding upon the things that we would want them to. They just want you to be like, what's the burn? Who caused the burn? Sukal did? But why did Sukal cause the burn? We fucking know why. From minute one, it's because his mum died. We got it.
Sukal. He caused the burn.
Let's talk about Hugh Culber. Rachel, it's time for the Hugh-dar. Hugh was not here in this episode, but they talked about him a lot, and that was kind of it. Not much to talk about with Hugh Culber, but Jonas, I want to talk to you about Hugh. What has your feelings been about Hugh Culber as a character on your watching of it? And how much has it been affected now by hearing our show, in which we have a weekly discussion about just his character specifically?
Well, hearing you guys talk about it, I started thinking back to all the Star Treks and how the medical character always has such a huge influence. Beverly, even the counselor,
Yeah.
And so here Hugh is just a character. He's just painted on the wall. He is just he's non-existent. He serves a purpose. They want to show this relationship between Stamets and him, and that's it. Because you never really see him, like Beverly, just going and saving people and checking, like doing all of this. You never
Doing
see
medicine? A doctor that does medicine?
A doctor with plots about medicine too would be fun to watch.
Ethical medical decisions?
The Doctor in Voyager is one of my favorite Star Trek characters, and all of his episodes primarily focus around him being a doctor in a story.
And he couldn't even get out of his medical bay, so he did more than this guy.
Yeah. But what about the third season? Do you think, like us, that they've managed to expand him into that role a little bit more, or is it still not there for you?
If you think about it, 1 second we were 800, 900 years ago. 1 second we were there, and he was having doubts, and they were about to break up, and he wanted nothing to do with Paul. And then they come to the future instantly, and now all that is gone. Nothing else happened after that. They've been happily ever after, and it's like, okay, wait a second, but in reality, it's just been moments since you transfer, and so where did all that go? Because he was really messed up on the last season. He was so messed up in the head, because I think we would all be, if we resurrected and all of a sudden this is my body, but it's not my body, and I don't feel like myself, and and so all that is gone.
But he had a conversation with the Admiral, who used to be a therapist, and that solved all of his problems. And then he waited several episodes to tell Stamets that, actually, I still love you. And then, because they had to wait until the season finale, and then that's when everything went, oh, they're happy again.
I can't get over in this season. They bring up his issues from season 2. Like last episode, Sukal, they bring up his whole identity issues. Yet at the same time,
they use it as a justification for why he stays.
The justification for why the drama needs to continue. But also, they don't want to address the fact that a guy who just had a severe identity crisis to the point of not being
Yes.
sure about his position as a doctor or a boyfriend is totally down for being a father in this.
Down for it.
Not even one moment of hesitation. Not even a moment of hesitation of, for instance, he said in one episode that if I had the time, I would be a father or would have kids. But here's the thing. Paul and Hugh had a massive relationship rift last season that was huge. One of them was going to leave.
But having kids solves relationships
And
problems.
at no point did anyone in
No.
their relationship question, hey, maybe having a kid to patch up our drama is unhealthy. In this, they're like, no, that's totally rad. We should totally avoid our own drama by adding a child to it.
It'll solve everything. We'll have to come together to help a dear.
And we like this child because, weirdly enough, they have the same dramatic story we do, which is they have a dead ghost lover that only they can see. And we have to resurrect them next season.
Oh,
No, and he's the most unstable character at the end of season 2.
Mm.
And now this season, he's soft, giving advice to everybody, and he knows what's best for the whole crew. It's just follow through. If you're gonna do this, give me consistency. You're telling me that this character is flawed or because of what happened or he's traumatized, and then carry him over and get him over that, but all of a sudden now, boom, 900 years in the future. Now he's a super counselor and he knows what's best, even though he's not the counselor. He's not a therapist. He knows what the crew needs and everything revolves around that he's trying to heal the crew or he's trying to better, the whole crew where it's very, it doesn't work like that.
I think it presents a lot of opportunities for me as an actor, but also for the show to deal with those kinds of issues. So I think it's exciting for Dr. Culber to bring those two things together. That the physical and the mental are, we look at a person's health holistically, and that is the way of the future.
Rachel, what would you give There Is a Tide? Would you give it a yum meaning bad or yum yum being good?
I think it's still a yum.
Yeah.
I'm a bit conflicted. We've had a streak of weird episodes from Discovery, while this felt like
It's
a
not
stock
completely
standard.
awful. So it's not like an obvious yum yum, but I don't feel like it's enough. I mean, it's not an obvious yum, and I don't think there's quite enough to make it a yum yum.
I agree. My rating is a yum
Yeah.
on the biggest basis of wasted potential.
So,
This is a wasted potential.
This
They
entire
throw out
discussion has been various forms of they could have.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When I sit back and look at the episode, I'm not thinking about the actual episode. I'm thinking about the could have beens that this episode could have generated. But that doesn't mean the episode did anything on its own.
How about you, Jonas?
You would think that we feel this way because it's a two-parter, right? Or because, this is... Actually, no, this is not a two-parter, but because this is the one right before the end.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not. It's incomplete. So and nothing happened. I mean, if I can think of one good thing that happened in this whole episode, I would say
They say I love you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an important
I would say
moment.
the Apple conversation.
Yeah.
That was about it.
That is a highlight.
And Vance was pretty good. He's very
Vance
solid.
was great.
He represents the Federation, and he's a solid character. And he carried through. This is what you would expect from the Federation. Hitler is coming and saying, "I want to make peace," and you say, "Well, you need to die," and that's what would happen. So for that, just for Vance, just for him, I'm gonna give this a yum.
Yeah.
I mean, it would get nothing
Yeah.
if it wasn't for him. So it's still bad, but if it wasn't for... And I agree. Now, imagine this. Imagine if Discovery was filled with characters like Admiral Vance. Now, that would be a fucking show. Characters that
Like
are
actual
That would be
characters?
Star Trek.
Starfleet characters. Yeah, that would be Star Trek.
What?
Imagine that.
Crazy. That's not what Star Trek in the 21st
This is
century
soap opera
is.
Star Trek. It's not Star Trek.
Yeah, well, it's Star Trek in ways, but in more ways than not, it's trying to...
It evokes Star Trek 5. What more do you want?
That's the thing. I personally don't think that Star Trek Discovery isn't Star Trek. I just wish that it wasn't trying to be that type of show in which it's like, hey, you know that thing you like? Well, this is us twisting and inverting it and trying to play. I just wish that one of these new Star Trek shows was just a Star Trek show. Because in the 90s, you had Deep Space Nine. And Deep Space Nine was twisting things and testing morality and doing things a bit different. Ooh, we're on a space station. Ooh, this. But you know what made it work? Other than it was a well-written show with great characters, and they were all Starfleet characters anyway, a lot of them, you still had TNG, you still had Voyager. You still had the original series. You still had things that represented the norm. So that way, when you had something that was the juxtaposition, you had something to mirror it off of. But in Discovery's landscape, all of the new Star Trek shows are like rejecting the things that people like about Star Trek in this way. But there's no current show that is like, oh, that's just like a normal Star Trek show. The Orville is like the normal Star Trek show. I mean, Discovery would work in the landscape of one of the other Star Trek shows is like TNG or like a normal show. And then this is like playing around with it. But they're all just playing around with it to the point in which it's like, I just wish that you would stop playing and just be a Star Trek show fully. Embrace your Star Trek.
Are you ready to hear about the next episode?
The last episode of season 3.
That Hope Is You, Part 2.
You know that they named it the last second? It had a different name. It wasn't supposed to be a Part 1 and Part 2.
No, I do know that because it still stands out as being a stupid decision. But IMDb offers up this synopsis as the Emerald Chain tightens its grip. Get it? Because it's a chain.
Yeah, I got it.
And the mystery of the burn is finally solved. It was solved several episodes ago. Burnham and the crew have one last chance to save themselves. They've had multiple chances. And the Federation.
I like your little snide additions to that. The last thing I think we should all say about this episode was, look, we complained that we didn't learn a lot about our characters or fulfilled, but you know what we did get? Some epic lore about Andorian opera. And wasn't that worth it?
Maybe one day we'll watch Stamets in that right hall and hear those multiple undertones.
Overtones. Yeah, like, oh... I love that we got a whole Andorian opera speech. It was brilliant. Brilliant writing. I'm glad that we got that. I'm glad we got a grudge update. I'm glad that we didn't understand what our characters were thinking or doing.
Did we know what the piercings were?
Oh, yeah, they were like for children because children are a blessing.
Is that a lore element that's introduced?
Added here, yeah, I'm pretty sure. And
groundbreaking.
And just so that you guys know that this show is about faith still, children are a blessing. And I have a child, and they're a blessing. Get it? Blessing. We get it. You're spiritual. So, Jonas, tell everyone and ourselves where people can find you and your show. And, just give us your plugs.
Oh, thank you. Again, I'm Jonas. My podcast is the Short Podcast. And you can find me on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all platforms, or also at Twitter at the Short Shorts 1. And that's pretty much it. Just, they're not your typical short stories. They're short. They're meant to be short because I just feel like, some people just want to hear something, get into it, and then move on. And it's not your conventional podcast. I feel sometimes people think that it's not a podcast because I'm not there talking. It's just you get there, you hear it, you get the short story, and that's it. But yeah, if find me there, and thank you so much, guys. This has been very, very an opportunity for me to vent all my frustration and I. Every time I heard your podcast and I heard Rachel implore to stop watching this and how painful it was, well, now I know.
Yeah.
Now I know. And it's crazy because when I was watching season 1 and season 2, you know how many times I watched season 1 and season 2? A lot. And it was never this painful. It was never this painful. And now it's like, oh my God.
You can't unsee it.
I'm sorry that we made you awake and see the details that aren't there, so now you can't enjoy.
You chose ignorance. The pain of this episode, though.
We remove the ignorance is bliss from Jonas.
I take the red pill.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's been a pleasure. Yes, we'll include all the links to Jonas's show in the description of this episode as well. And check out his stuff. Nice bite-sized episodes. Really, really goes down well. You can find us on those social medias: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Reddit, YumYumPod or YumYumPodcast. We're always engaging with people, furthering discussions, putting posts on there, asking more questions about things that we've discussed, sharing stuff. So we're always on there. If you haven't followed us on any of those, make sure to do so. We also have our Patreon, in which we have further content. We talk about the Star Trek movies. We talk about some of the best and worst rated episodes of Star Trek. We talk about just our general thoughts on other pieces of media. So that is Yum Yum Podcast on Patreon. Again, all of this is in the description of the episode. Make sure to rate and review us on whatever podcatcher allows it. It is always greatly appreciated. It's
5 stars are greatly appreciated.
Make sure you put a yum or yum yum in your review, so that way we know that you're a diehard fan of the show. Hey, Jonas, do you think that this episode would have been better if Nan flicked her hair back at one point, licked her lips sexily, and said yum yum in retort to someone? Do you think would have been better?
I think she could have made it so much better.
Or if they called the dots AI sausages.
If they were little floating AI sausages, that would have been the killer. So thank you.
Programmable matter. You can do whatever you want.
You can do whatever you want. So thank you, Jonas, for coming on. Thank you, Rachel, for enduring the episodes of Star Trek Discovery.
Thank you for acknowledging that.
And suffering for the art